What's going on? This is Blaine with Riffs, Thrifts, and Jits. Today I wanted to make a video for all the beginner guys out there starting Jiu Jitsu. I've been doing Jiu Jitsu for around 7 years. I'm a brown belt now, and I come across a lot of people. The longer you do it, the more people you come across that start and quit. I mean, to me, it's such an unfortunate thing to see, because I always felt that starting jiu-jitsu was pretty much the hardest part. Going in there your first day that's what you have to muster the courage up and go out there. That, to me, that's the hardest part, because it's new, it's scary, you don't know what to expect, But then what I see a lot of times with guys is they get in there one day and they're like, wow, this is not as bad as I thought. This is actually extremely fun. And then people get bit by the bug. But still, tons of people fall off and quit. So I kind of wanted to give some inspiration, a couple things that I learned along the way. So this is 5 tips. I'm probably going to make a couple of these videos because I can think of 100 different things that may be able to help out. That this is all learned from my experience, and some of these are some of my mistakes, So the first one is show up to class. Now this is one I didn't have an issue with. Once I started my first day, I just got obsessed, and I was in there all the time, which a lot of guys can relate to. But showing up to class is like, it's the most basic thing with jiu-jitsu. You show up, you get mat time, you get better. There's no way around it, So, when you first start, and I understand people have jobs, people have families and whatnot, so you show up when you can show up. But if you're able to get in there as much as you can, as much as your body allows. You don't want to overdo it and overtrain. But if you're having a day where you're kind of like, I don't know if I should go, just go. There's been tons of times, as much as I love jiu-jitsu, tons of times throughout, as long as I've been doing it, that I had to force myself to go. I just didn't feel it for whatever reason. But I knew I wanted to get closer to my goals, so I ignored that part of my thinking, and I said, all right, I'm going. And I'd have to say 99 out of 100 times when I'm there, as soon as we start warming up, I'm good to go, and I'm in the zone. And whenever I'm done, I'm like, oh God, I'm so happy I went to class today, So you have to just show up and force yourself. Because one thing that I do see, and I've done it in my later years actually, is you take a day off, you take another day off, take another day off, and I'm not talking just consecutive days. I'm talking maybe you want to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then you take off on Monday, and then you're like, I'm not gonna go Friday. Well, that builds up, and eventually you stop going to class altogether, and then it's very hard to get that cardio back and that timing back. And you might go back after 2 weeks and you feel like shit because you're just not up, you're not sharp. Now, granted, you could build it back quick. Why go through all that hassle and all that trouble, So the second tip is to ask questions. So you have at every jiu-jitsu gym, there is, especially when you first start, everybody there pretty much knows more than you. So you have a wealth of knowledge at your disposal. So after class, maybe after a roll, ask questions. When your professor teaches a technique and says, I see it with everybody who's ever taught to me will say, did everybody see that? Does anybody have any questions? And I see it all the time. I look around, because I've taught too, and I've seen on people's faces where they don't know what they just saw, but they're not gonna step up and say, yeah, I didn't see it. Don't do that. If you didn't see it, ask to see it again. Because whenever I teach and somebody asks me, I want them to ask me, because I want them to understand it, right? So don't be scared to be that guide. Who cares? Matter of fact, in my later years, I ask more questions than I think I ever have. If I don't see something, I want to know, and I want to learn it. So, because whenever you say your instructor teaches you something and you didn't catch it, then you get with your partner and then y'all got to figure it out, and you're wasting time trying to figure out what he said when you could just ask him in the first place, hey, can you please show that again? Okay, then you see it and then you can start working it, So ask questions. Now, one thing that I've always despised, because whenever you're going through, say you get a couple rounds to roll, is don't ask questions in the middle of rolling. You know, especially if you're with a higher belt, somebody that wants to get their rolls in, don't sit there and hold it up asking, oh, what did you do here? What'd you do? Just get your rolls in. You know, if you want to ask after class, go ahead and ask after class. But don't, I always hate it when somebody asks me questions in the middle of a roll. And really, if somebody asks me, I say, look, well, I'll show you afterwards. So that's one thing. And some people don't know that. They don't know that the other person's like wants to get their rolls in, and you know, they're watching the clock, looking at time go down, trying to show you something when you could be getting your rolls in. So okay, the third thing is on days, really all the time you should eat good, but especially on days that you train, you need to eat good. You know, you need to eat like you know you're going to be training that night. Because, and I'm telling you this definitely from experience, because when I first started, I still had bad eating habits. And I mean, I literally would go to Chinese buffets sometimes for lunch and then try and roll that night and feel like there's grease inside my blood, you know, and I'm extremely slow and lethargic and feeling like dog shit. And it took me a few times of doing that to where I was like, man, I need to eat good. I need to eat good. And what I see a lot of times is jiu-jitsu kind of forces you to eat good, because you know you want every competitive advantage that you can get, especially when you first start and you don't have the technique to kind of rely on. You have to eat good, especially on training days. It only benefits you, you know. It'll help you reach whatever weight loss goals you have, and also it'll help you perform better on days that you train. So, okay, so the fourth one is, this is, I feel like, a very overlooked thing, and people talk about it. You see Hicks and Gracie is famous for this, and is breathe. You know, breathe while you roll. Because one thing I see a lot of people do is they overwhelm themselves, you know, and they get in this it's almost as if they're in a real fight sometimes when we're just rolling, and they're holding their breath, or they're breathing really, really hard, and you're releasing all your energy, you know, all your energy. So one thing that I tried to do early on was I realized that sometimes I was just wasting all my breath and breathing really sporadically. And one thing I did was I say, okay, I'm gonna slow it down. I'm gonna roll fast and do my thing, but I'm gonna be conscious of your breath. Try that next time you roll, to be conscious of your breath. And you'll notice that your cardio is going to get better that way. You're going to maintain some of that energy that you have just by breathing properly and focusing on it. You know, as you're moving, stay calm. And then if you get put in a bad position, say somebody's mounting you, they have you in side control, it's okay. I'm breathing and relaxing. You know, that's really going to help you and benefit you with your endurance specifically. So number 5 is a huge one for anybody who starts, and really anybody as long as you train jiu-jitsu, and that's don't be hard on yourself. I think even me to this day, sometimes I kind of get hard on myself if I say I go with a black belt or another brown belt or even a purple belt sometimes, and I either get beat or I have a really rough match, and I feel like, man, I should have beat them. You know, I should have really dominated, I feel, but I don't. You know, you got to keep in mind that everybody else around you is training too, and everybody else is trying to get better and improve. And especially when you get to the higher level, you're dealing with people who are legit. You know, they know shit. So you can't be hard on yourself. Everybody has good days. Everybody has bad days. And it's very cliche to say, but you're really truly competing against yourself and trying to make yourself better. So when you're first starting, if you're gonna get more times than not, if you have no wrestling background or no judo or anything like that, you're gonna get smashed by everybody. It doesn't matter if they're a girl, it doesn't matter if they're a guy, if they're small, big, you're gonna get smashed. It's just what it is. And everybody kind of accepts that, and everybody knows that, and it's just, you know, how you just got to get through it. So you can't be hard on yourself and be like, man, I got, you know, you're 200 pounds, you got smashed by a dude that's 150. It's okay. It's okay. You know, It's okay. You're gonna improve. Just worry about you getting better. Cause I've seen it so many times. You know, I'm a smaller guy. When most of my training, I've been around 145, 150. I'm about 175 now, so I put on some weight within the past few months. But as a smaller guy, you know, I've beat guys much larger than me. If I was, let's say, a purple belt and they're a white belt, you know, and I'm not supposed to. If you see us standing next to each other, you would say, geez, there's no way he's going to beat this guy. But that's just the power of jiu-jitsu. But one thing that I would say is, you know, if I beat a guy and I see him kind of discouraged, I say, look, I've been here for a long time. I know stuff you don't know. You know, keep going, keep training. And eventually these guys start giving me a run for my money. They get harder and harder and harder and harder. And as they progress, we have some really good matches, you know, and this is people that could do whatever I wanted to. But eventually people start catching up, you know? So that can be you. That can be you. If you're right here now, you will progress. Just follow some of these tips that that I laid out, and I guarantee you will get better. And to me, there's not much funner than jiu-jitsu, you know? So there's not much, I can't think of anything more positive to do than jiu-jitsu. You know, you're making yourself better, you're getting healthy, you're learning how to defend yourself. So just remember that. So whenever you feel down and you're like, man, I'm not doing good, look at all the positive that you're doing by showing up and going there. You know, you're going against other trained killers. It's okay. It's okay. Make yourself better, you know? So yeah, that's my 5 tips. Like I said, I'm going to make more videos on this topic and other jiu-jitsu topics. So I appreciate you watching, and keep on training.